Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We'll wait for just a minute or so to begin. And if you already have burning questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box. All right. Welcome again, everyone. We will have some intros to begin as other folks roll into this webinar. Thank you all for being here today. So I would like to first, again, welcome everyone attending virtually from the US to Ukraine to this live webinar, Ukraine's Children of War and the Helpers, hosted by Common Man for Ukraine. I'm Rebecca Liron from the Clinton Global Initiatives Ukraine Action Network, and we work with a large range of partners from small grassroots organizations to private sector and Ukrainian government, including Common Man for Ukraine as one of our key partners. So it's really interesting for me to have a vantage point to different aspects on the humanitarian response needs in Ukraine. So today's conversation comes at a really important and heightened moment during the war in Ukraine. Even this week, Russian attacks on Kiev killed a reported 15 people and wounded more than 150 others. And the war's impacts have devastated many aspects of life in Ukraine, and children are often the most impacted in every aspect of life, which we'll be hearing more about today directly from people experiencing it. The United Nations also reports that since February 2022, from the full-scale invasion to the end of 2024, over 700,000 children have been internally displaced in Ukraine, and an additional 1.7 million Ukrainian children are now refugees in other countries. And noting that June 20th is World Refugee Day, so this is especially timely. So for today's conversation, we'll hear directly from two Ukrainian teen leaders whose formative years have been spent during active war and threats from Russia and Ukraine. I'm grateful to introduce Taia Rihorova and Sofiia Kopitko, who are currently based in Warsaw and Kiev, respectively. Next, we'll have a forward-looking conversation with two humanitarian leaders, Lisa Murray and Susan Matheson, who help run the nonprofit Common Man for Ukraine, who are based in Plymouth, New Hampshire. And you can read more about their bios that have been put in the chat. I'm also very happy to introduce Michael Henrik with Henrik Communications, a former journalist who works in support of Common Man for Ukraine. Michael, thank you so much for all of your work behind the scenes to make this event happen and run smoothly. And at the end of the moderated conversations, we'll have some time for panelists to answer your questions. So again, feel free to put those in the Q&A box at any point, and we'll take as many as we can. So to help set the stage, we'll now share a 3-minute video highlighting on-the-ground work from Common Man for Ukraine and their 12 humanitarian journeys to the country, and the impact that the organization has made for Ukrainians affected by the war.
Dima.
Now, more than ever, Ukraine's children need our help.
This is easy.
In Ukraine, there are about 2.5 million internally displaced children. 2.5 million children who are hiding in safe houses, orphanages, abandoned schools, and repurposed monasteries, hiding from kidnapping and bombing.
Це мої троє в нас настрої. Ага, 2 lata.
W ogóle o tym nie myślimy w czasie tej wojny. Jest zadanie do wykonania i to robimy.
There is no place of thinking about the risks involved because there is so much action to be done. So the main focus is on achieving those goals that we set, and we don't think about the risks.
These kids have basic needs. We rent a warehouse in Poland. We stockpile food, sleeping bags, and generators. And every month, volunteer truck drivers load up goods from the warehouse and deliver them to safe houses and orphanages throughout Ukraine. While we've been feeding these children for the last 3 years, we noticed that the trauma that they are suffering is catastrophic. They're living in a war zone. Many of them have lost a parent. And we decided to expand an existing program and provide monthly trauma counseling retreats to children whose fathers have been killed in the war.
Тут те відчуття, коли ти почуваєш себе безпечно, ти не боїшся, коли ти не боїшся тривог, ти не боїшся, що з тобою щось може статися погано.
America has this history to it where we see struggles in other countries and we chip in, we come together, and we try to alleviate the suffering of others across the globe. So Ukraine is just another example, an opportunity that has presented itself where there is somebody that is suffering, a country that is in turmoil, and we're there to bring hope, to bring strength, to bring goods, resources, and some sense of connectedness across the globe.
For decades into the future, they will remember that at a really dark time, someone from the United States, carrying messages of love, brought to them food, warmth, and care.
Thank you. And what a great way to kick off this conversation. Thank you to Common Man for Ukraine for all of your amazing work. So to kick this off, we'll be hearing directly from the very impressive Taia and Sofiia, both youth leaders from Ukraine. Again, what I shared earlier, but just repeating, Taia, 19, is originally from Kharkiv, Ukraine, and though currently based in Warsaw, where she studies journalism, she returns frequently to visit her family. And Sofiia is currently based in Kiev. Both of them have been involved with Common Man for Ukraine's programs, which you will hear about more shortly. So as I mentioned, Sofiia, 18, is originally from Eastern Ukraine and currently studies acting in Kiev. I also want to acknowledge the recent attacks in Kiev that Sofiia and many others continue to be impacted by, and reiterate our support and solidarity for Ukraine. So now to start our conversation, Taia and Sofiia, I'll let you come in, whoever wants to first, but wondering how the war has impacted you and your family. And you can speak to whether that's going to school or any other aspect that you'd like to touch on. Sofiia, do you want to start us off?
Okay. So, first of all, hello everyone. So, as you all know, the war started long time ago. It's been 11 years. And this time was really hard for all of us, but it became harder 3 years ago when full-scale invasion started. And I remember really well the first couple of minutes when I discovered that full-scale invasion started, and I was horrified. I was crying, I was shaking, but as time passed, you I'm sorry. As time passed, I just started to live differently, and unfortunately, I don't even remember what life was before the full-scale invasion, and this is really, really strange because I don't remember the feeling when when you're seeing a plane in the sky and you're like, oh, a plane, wow, cool. No, when I was in Warsaw and I saw a plane for the first time when I was there, I was shocked and I said, oh my God, a plane without bombs? I was confused, and all of us will be confused when everything is going to end. And I hope that everything is going to end well for Ukraine. But all of us are scared. All of us are scared for our lives, for lives of our loved ones, for our family, friends, for all of the people who live in Ukraine right now. Because you don't know what is going to happen next. You can just go to bed now, and you can wake up tomorrow and do your routine, go to work or school or studying, but sometimes you cannot. And this is really, really scary. My studying, sometimes it's really hard to do all my work in university after night attacks because for example, you can sleep all night and the next day you have two performances that you have to put on and you have to do them, and you have to give all your energy from the stage to people, and you have to do it the right way. You have to be there, and you just can't pass this. So we just learn how to cope with that. And I think that this is the strength of our people.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing about your lived experiences. Really impactful to hear. And that, you don't remember what it's like before the war. So sorry that you're experiencing all of this. And wondering if, Taia, you would like to add anything about your current experience and how the war has affected your day-to-day life.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, hello everyone, and the topic is really sensitive for me. I'm from city which is near the Russian-Ukrainian border, which is called Kharkiv, and life completely changed. Um, like I can remember first days of war and how you don't think about that you can go to school. You can't even go outside. People didn't have water at home and they didn't have food at home, and they needed to go to some shops because nobody accepted this war. We didn't think that tomorrow we will have war in our city, in our country, and that we won't have water or food. And people couldn't go outside because they were bombed through planes, and Russians threw some bombs on queues, on live queues, while they were standing and waiting for some water. And it's pretty similar even now. So in my city, when I come to my parents to visit my parents, each time when I want to go for a cup of coffee or to a shop, I'm all the time afraid that while I will be in the shop, I will be bombed. And it became easier only in one way, because first days of war, first weeks of war, we were bombed every hour, and now once a day, twice a day. But it's still scary when you go to a shop and you were expecting that a bomb will fall on your head. And I visit my family regularly, like all the time. When I have opportunity to go to them, I go, because I'm afraid I won't be able to meet them any time.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Taia, for sharing that. And just a reflection of, no one expects that war to hit in their homeland. And also the fact that a bomb only once a day or twice a day is an improvement is just a really impactful statement. So again, solidarity with both of you, and you're extremely strong. So I also wanted to ask about the issue of kidnapping of Ukrainian children, as the Ukraine Conflict Observatory estimates that Russia has kidnapped several thousand Ukrainian children since the war began. So wondering if you would want to touch on the effect that this has had, or some of other bigger risks that you face and other children face in Ukraine.
Can I?
Yes, please go ahead.
So I had a really, really good friend. Her name is Irina, and I met her in 2021. We were really, really good friends, and I met her online, and our first live meeting was on February 20th of February 2022. It was the day I came to Kyiv for a championship, and we met. We just had a walk. We were laughing, talking. We went to buy some books, had a coffee, and spent really, really good time. She was from Kyiv, and when the full-scale invasion started, her family decided to leave Kyiv to protect their lives. And it was my friends, Arina, her mom, her dad, her younger sister, Yana, and their dog. Unfortunately, they didn't make it. When they were leaving Kyiv, Russian army shoot them in their cars. And their father and their mother, they died on the spot. And Arina had a wound in her leg. So her younger sister decided to just go and ask for help from people in the village, but unfortunately no one opened their door. And I don't blame them, because people were scared because they didn't know who were knocking on their door. So when Yana went back to her sister, their dad was already dead. Their mother was already dead, and Doc also. And a couple of hours later, Russian tanks arrived, and they separated them. They took Yana to nearest village and gave her to people. And as for Irina, they took her in an just unknown path, and we didn't know what happened to her. It was March the 3rd. So we haven't heard her about anything from her. We tried to search for her. We were looking for her in I'm sorry, in all of cities in Ukraine, in Lviv, in Chernivtsi, in Ivano-Frankivsk, in Kyiv, and all of other cities. We have a thing that helps to find missing children. And they tried to search for her, they tried to find her, but unfortunately, that didn't help. And Ukraine sent requests to Russia, to Belarus to find Irina. They were asking, is she there? But every time they answered, she's not on the territory of Russia or Belarus, not amongst the live, not among the dead. So last winter, it was evening. I remember that really, really well. I was sitting in my room at home in Kyiv. I had a really, really long, hard day in university. And I just was searching something in internet, and news broke. They found Irina. They found her in the morgue in Moser. And she came back to Ukraine, but she was not that girl that I remembered, because she wasn't alive. She wasn't with us, and we don't know for how long. We don't know what happened to her. And I'm really, really scared to imagine what this pure soul went before her death. It could be days, it could be months, it could be weeks, minutes, or seconds, but this was hell on earth. I just know this by heart because this couldn't be easy for her. I'm so scared to imagine what she went through. She was only 15. She was 15. She had all her life just in front of her, and they took it. They took almost all her family. She was buried in Uman, just beside her parents. And I'm so sorry for all her family, for her younger sister, who was 9 years old at the time, for all her friends that went through this hell. And unfortunately, this is not the only story that happens. This is unfortunately really, really common thing right now. They kidnap kids, they kidnap women, they kidnap men, they kidnap elderly people, and they torture them because they have torture camps. Couple of days or weeks ago, men returned from this camp to Ukraine. They burned on his stomach, praise, glory to their country. This is horrific. This is horrific. They're torturing kids. They're torturing people. They kidnap them from their home. And these people, they don't know if they're gonna return to Ukraine, if they're gonna see or hear their loved ones. And this is awful.
Thank you so much, Sophia. I'm sorry that you've gone through all of this and for your loss of your friend. I know it's something that you really wanted everyone to hear today, what happened to people that you know, and your fear also for what will happen to other people in Ukraine. So thank you for sharing. And again, so sorry. So I think we can all take a breath in the audience and amongst our panelists. And I will turn a little bit to how Common Man for Ukraine is trying to help children who have experienced trauma, such as what you've gone through. And we'll maybe ask Taia if you can speak to 2 years ago when you volunteered at the Common Man for Ukraine's Child Trauma Counseling Retreat. What maybe stuck out to you most about that experience, whether it was your personal experience being there or in your role as a volunteer and having interactions with younger children?
It was 2 years ago, right? We went to Zakopane, Poland to volunteer and work with kids who have lost their fathers during the war in Ukraine. And I was really scared. I remember that I was really scared because I didn't know how these children feel and how am I supposed to work with them. But when I came and saw them, I saw that they still can love and they still can shine bright, and they just need to get like this feeling that they also love, that the world is not that bad and it's not that rude, and it's still people that can help them and love them. And like they were so active, they were so wonderful, and like they were trying to help our volunteers, each other, to team up together, to put all love they have in them, to make some friends. And it's such an incredible scene that kids like who are going through all this nightmare can still try to live normally, to I don't know, to love other people, to share this love. I can remember like how they asked one girl in a camp, she asked if she can write me, like after the camp, if we can stay in touch because she needed someone to talk about some stuff at school, or because she was bullied. People bullied her for not having a father. And I told yes, absolutely, and we're still in touch. And it's so important for these kids to have somebody to talk, or to spend some time with somebody who understands them, and to get this care and this love and this support. They're so little and they understand so much. It's speechless. I don't know.
Thank you so much, Taia, and for sharing what you experienced, and that, there is some light in these really dark times, and that at the end of the day, they're still kids and experiencing the same experiences that many kids do, but with all of those compounded events from the war, of course, also being extra difficult. So it's really impactful what Common Man for Ukraine is doing, and also that you were able to be a part of this. So our last question for you both for now is just what you would want people on the call to know about how humanitarian actors and other people around the world can help children in Ukraine. So I'll maybe give Sofiia and then Taia just briefly one thing you would want folks to know.
I would want people to know that all your help is really, really important, because Ukraine suffers every day and these kids suffer every day. But you help them because you can change their lives. And I'm incredibly grateful to Common Man for Ukraine for everything they do for these kids, because um, these retreats in Poland, they really, really help these kids to cope with their trauma, to relax for a little bit, to forget about all horror they went through, because they all are traumatized and they will carry this trauma through every day of their lives, unfortunately, but they can cope with that, and you can help them. And thank you, thank you, thank you, 1,000 times thank you, Common Man for Ukraine, for everything you do, because you're not only helping them in these retreats, but you're helping them here in Ukraine with toys and food and everything you can do for them. And this is incredible. And I want people to remember that war is going and war is still here, and that this war is not only our war. Not only us are fighting in this. We're not only fighting for our lives, but Ukraine also fights for life of every people, every person in this world, because if we fall, they won't stop. They can't stop.
Yeah.
They don't have this humanity in them, unfortunately. So we have to stay brave and strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Sofiia, and what a powerful note and reminder to end on, that this is a fight that all of us are a part of and can affect all of us who are not directly in Ukraine or surrounding countries. So our continued support is extremely important. Thank you again, Sofiia. And Taia, very briefly, do you have one thing that you would like everyone here today to know?
Yeah, like I want to remind people that we have a lot of children growing up in this horrifying situation, and a lot of children who were born before war and during the war, they didn't see this peace and the world, and they don't know how to sleep without air alarms. They don't know how to sleep at night without bombs dropping on their hands. They don't know how to live in, like, just live and don't be scared. They won't wake up tomorrow, or with their relatives won't happen something. And the Common Man for Ukraine is doing everything for these kids to feel like that the life is still here, the happiness is still here, and they can like experience this peace, this calmness, take a bit of rest and enjoy life for a moment, because they growing up in this.
Yes, thank you so much, Taia. A really important reminder of, the experiences that children are facing every day and continue to face. Some of them even were born during this war. And also the important reminder that children deserve to play and to be happy and to have access to the things that children in the US and other places do have access to. So thank you so much to you both for being so open and vulnerable and sharing about your lived experiences. We're going to transition to speaking with Lisa and Susan for a bit, and then we'll all come back together for the Q&A. So I'm happy to reintroduce Lisa Murray and Susan Matheson, leaders of Common Man for Ukraine. Susan co-founded Common Man for Ukraine in 2022, serves as president of her local Habitat for Humanity affiliate, and is a former USDA Forest Service career officer and a mother. And Lisa is a former educator and current public health consultant, nonprofit board member, and a mother. And again, you can read more about their bios in the chat. So I'll go to Susan first. We all saw the video at the beginning of this webinar, but can you briefly share a personal note on what prompted you to launch Common Man for Ukraine?
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you to Sofiia and Taia for their moving testaments of their lives in Ukraine and the importance of the world to stay focused and aware of what's going on there, especially for the children of Ukraine. When the war started in February of 2022, Lisa, Alex, Steve, and I, the four co-founders, were simply regular Americans sitting around hearing the unbelievable news of what was happening. And each of us responded from different perspectives. Lisa brought her perspective as a public health professional, understanding the importance of both physical and mental health. Steve was a veteran of the Vietnam War, and his view of the news reminded him of World War II and how people fled for their lives as we watched the train stations fill with millions of people running out of Ukraine. And Alex has a long time humanitarian. He's worked all over the world in various humanitarian efforts, and so this called to him as well. And when I looked at the news feeds of these millions of women, elderly, and children fleeing into these train stations to try to escape, I am a widow and have raised two children. Their fathers died when they were 2 and 7. And I can remember how scared I was of all the things as a single mom, how to protect my kids, how to feed them, how to pay the bills, how to instill good morals, all those things. And I thought, look at these moms in Ukraine. They have to do this in a war zone. And that just broke my heart. And so all of us came from a different perspective and a different lens, but the result was a united knowledge that we needed to do something. And so we co-founded Common Man for Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Susan, for sharing your personal experiences and what drew you to start the organization and start support for especially children and families in Ukraine. So Lisa, I'll go to you now. You've led about 12 humanitarian supply convoys in the current war zone in Ukraine. How has your experience on the ground changed or evolved from the earliest trips in 2022 until now? And what inspires you to stay committed to Ukraine?
Thank you, Rebecca. I also wanted to thank Sophia and Taia. Their experiences are what keep us motivated to work on this every day. Especially Sophia, thanks for bringing Irina's and her family's story to life. Those are important for us to hear. As they can attest, well, the war, the needs on the ground have definitely changed. On our first trip, there were millions of refugees moving across the border from Ukraine into neighboring countries. We had landed in Warsaw in Poland, and we were taken on a tour of emergency shelters. And there were just so many things that were needed at the time. There were just massive emergency shelters that needed cots and clothing and food and medical supplies just for the refugees. And then when we went into Ukraine on that first trip, we saw the same thing, lots of large emergency shelters. But over time, the war has changed, the conflict has changed. It really went from the front to kind of bombing all over Ukraine, back to the front again. And I mean, if you read the news now, they're getting hit really, really hard, almost like the early days of the war. And our first time in Kyiv, I remember we met with a Rotarian, an older woman who was just really powerful. She was giving us a tour of the city, and she showed us where the Russians marched on Kyiv. And I hadn't really even picked up on that in the early news stories, that the Russians had marched on Kyiv. And she was explaining that her son and his wife and children fled, and they said, "Mom, you need to come with us." And she said, "No, this is our country. I'm staying here. You can go." And she and the neighbors made as many Molotov cocktails as they could and started throwing them at the Russian soldiers and eventually pushed them back. And she's a proud Ukrainian, like every Ukrainian I have ever met. But conditions on the ground are different. There's a stronger, larger safety net, kind of safe house system across the country. So especially in Western Ukraine, but even in some of the eastern cities, there are places all over where the people living in the rural areas near the front can go and seek refuge. We've been in rural towns where most of the community at night all goes to the school basement to spend the night there. So they don't have to move anytime they hear an air raid siren, they just spend the night there. Now it's been almost an acceptance of war as the norm, which is very sad to see. And you can see it in the children's faces, as you saw in the video, that they're just getting used to it, which is really difficult. But what keeps all of us going, I think, is that we see the impact also of what we're doing. We're bringing food staples to a safe house system where children have been living for over 2 years. And when we bring them a toy, as silly as that seems, it warms their heart. They're smiling, they're grateful. It brings a little joy to them. And in other safe houses, again, especially where the communities are just spending the night, they have rolling blackouts now. They have air raid sirens almost every day, curfews and so forth. So when we bring supplies like solar lanterns and generators, it really, we see a difference that we're making in their lives, just bringing them a little comfort and hope every day. And I can never say enough about the children's retreats. We go and visit with the children every trip, and to see, as Taia and Sofiia said, they're just so full of joy and they're so happy to see us. And it's just a really a bright light in contrast to the darkness that we see with Russians' actions.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing more about the work. And I think this transitions well to asking a little bit further about the retreats that you've been doing for over 3 years for children living through this. And this past April, I know you sat down with a group of mothers and children to get feedback on the trauma counseling retreat. So wondering if there's any feedback that you received that stuck out to you, and what needs did they express being the most urgent?
So thank you for that question. I have to thank Richard Usen, who lives in Poland. He's a Rotarian and leads all of this work. He thinks of these wonderful and important ideas, such as bringing some of the mothers together. And so we were in the Rivne region, and he convened about maybe 14 mothers from that region whose children had gone to one of our retreats. And Susan sat at one table and I sat at another with half of the group and with a translator, and we just talked to them as mothers and said, you know, how are you doing? And they described what Susan had referred to. You know, they're carrying on as Ukrainians do. They're incredibly strong and formidable in their spirit. But they acknowledged it's difficult trying to be super mom and super dad. They said these are all widows. The children are at the retreat because their fathers died in the war. And they talked about the gratitude for the retreats. They talked about the retreats really being able to reset their children's mental health. That as I think Sofiia described, when they got to go to a country to see a sky that they didn't have to be afraid of, that was incredibly positive for them. And they got to meet other children that were going through the same loss. They got coping skills, and they got a sense of relief for not just a day or a weekend or a week, but they go there for almost 3 weeks. And I think the mothers really felt like it was enough time for the children to reset. And one mother said that her son never wanted to talk about the father who had died and didn't want to go to the cemetery. And when we came back, I mean, when the child came back from the retreat, he actually asked his mother to go to the cemetery so he could see his father's grave. So hearing that was wonderful. And in terms of need, the mothers said, you know, it was actually a break for them when their children went to the retreat. They got to just, you know, decompress a little bit themselves. And they said they would love to go to a retreat as well. Not so much for what would happen at the retreat as much as to be able to connect with other widows who were going through the same thing, almost the parallel need in the mothers being met by a similar retreat. Because they said there are programs sometimes in the city, they're difficult to get to, they don't feel a connection to them really well, and it's difficult even to access them with curfews and power outages and so forth. So that is something that we're piloting in August. So we'll have our first ever mothers retreat and see how that goes.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing this and for sharing the feedback that you heard directly from women and children who have participated in these retreats, and reiterates just how important and impactful they are. So we're going to now transition to the question and answer for all of our panelists. And thank you to everyone who has posed a question. We're trying to incorporate them as much as we can for the last 15 minutes. So Susan, I'll go to you first. A question from one of our participants. How does Common Man for Ukraine navigate Ukraine safely? What coordinating organizations do you partner or work with to deliver this aid response?
Thank you so much. This project is enormous when you think about it. We rent a warehouse outside of Zamasz, Poland, and we have convoys of trucks that go into Ukraine on a nearly monthly basis. None of this would be possible without the generous and committed support of the Rotary Clubs of Poland and the Rotary Clubs of Ukraine. We set up a great communication system between volunteer drivers of Poland and the needs on the ground as identified by Ukrainian Rotarians. And we coordinate with the Ukrainian military. That's very important. They know where the remote villages are near the front lines that are in desperate need of food, clothing, generators, and other items, critical aid, hygiene items. They also know which safe houses are short on supplies, and they can provide that information to us. And remember, these safe houses are hiding the progeny of Ukraine, the future of Ukraine. And so their locations are military secret. So it's only based on their trust of us, of Common Man for Ukraine, to help us get an expedited passage across the border and safely find the safe houses where children are hiding, and then also to get to the far reaches of the front line to provide food to frontline villages.
Thank you so much for sharing, Susan, how the operation happens kind of behind the scenes and in partnership with the Ukrainian government and military, and just shows to everyone how hard it is to get this aid in and what an enormous operation it is with very few staff doing it. So thank you for all of your work on that. And now I'll go to Taia for a question for you, and also want to share that in the Q&A box, many participants have just reiterated how thankful they are to both you and Sofiia for sharing and how strong you are. So Taia, with your family still in Kharkiv, how do they handle the threat of Russian control of the city and how the war affects their everyday life?
Yeah, my family is still in Kharkiv. And as my mother is saying me, like every time I write her, I want to come back home, like to visit them. She's saying me, no, it's dangerous because we can't promise you we will stay here even for a day longer. It's hard. I have a younger brother and he is 6 years old. And there are not much options for a 6-year-old boy to go there because it's like dangerous, and they even can't go meet other kids because there are no schools to go because it's dangerous to be all day at school because it can be bombed. And it's scary. It's really scary because every time they go to a shopping center, I'm afraid they will be attacked. All the time they are driving a car, I'm afraid they will be attacked. Because it happened earlier with me and them. We were driving. It was before Christmas, I guess. We were driving to a shopping mall to get some food for Christmas evening and to get some presents for each other. And the bomb dropped just in 20 meters from our car, and it broke windows, it broke everything behind us. And this was like just Christmas Eve. They attacked us on like a holiday because there are a lot of people near the shopping centers these days, and every time they go in some crowded places, I'm afraid they will be attacked. And they are also afraid. They choose time when to go, when it's what time is the less opportunity to get attacked by Russian bombs. They need to choose time when to go to bed and when to go for a walk and when to go to a shopping center for shopping. They need to choose time really carefully. And if it's air alarm, there are no many places even to hide and no time to hide because it flies only 1 minute to our city.
Thank you for sharing that, Taia, and just shows how, the day-to-day life of your family and also you when you're there is so affected. Something as simple as going to the grocery store. So really appreciate you shedding some light on that and again, sharing your lived experience. I'll go to Sofiia now, and you spoke about this a little bit before on what you want people to know and what are the biggest needs, but more specifically, can you mention some things that you think are the largest needs that, you personally or other youth and children need between, for example, food, clothing, and things like that?
Fortunately, personally me, I don't need any support or help in this way because my parents are helping me, my family help me, but a lot of kids don't have this support. They don't have family to support them because they lost them, unfortunately. And for a lot of kids, it's really important to have clothing. And most important, I think, the most important thing is medicine, because it's kids and they like to play, they like to run with each other, and they can fall, they can have some trauma, and not always they have medicine to help them when they're sick, when they have a wound on their knee. And I think that medicine is really, really important for kids. And not only kids, because a lot of people lost their homes, their job, and they live in a shelter. So medicine is really important for them. Probably food also is really important for them because they have to eat to survive. Food, water, but I'm not really sure what is really needed right now, because I don't have this information, and I think that probably Lisa and Susan will know more about this topic. But I
Thank you,
think they
Sophia.
just need support.
This
Thank
is
you.
where our partners on the ground are so important, both the Rotary clubs and the military, that help us understand what is needed. So right now we've delivered about 4 million pounds of food to safe houses and frontline villages. And we've asked the Ukrainians what it is they need for food. And they particularly request groat, which is a carbohydrate, their preferred carbohydrate. They make bread and muffins and pancakes out of that. We deliver that by the ton, as well as canned meat and some fruits and vegetables. And lately, as the needs have changed, they need hygiene items, dog food, pet food, and in the beginning, no one needed clothes, and because they had clothes when the war started. But now, 3.5 years later, their demand for even basic clothing and warm hats, gloves, and mittens in the winter. Ukraine's winters are much like New Hampshire's winters, very long, bitterly cold, and many homes don't have heating systems anymore. So those are the kinds of items we're providing.
Thank you so much, Susan. And that already addressed the follow-up questions that I was going to turn to you for. And I think this also just showcases, the need to ask directly from Ukrainian communities and also children and youth, not only the adults, what their needs are, which I know you're doing and it informs your work. And I think what you've all found and also are doing as a response is that psychosocial support is a very large need. So, what we've heard today really emphasizes what Ukrainian children and youth and everyone is facing on a day-to-day basis, and how important it is to have retreats like the one for counseling for those who have experienced trauma. And wanted to ask specifically, Lisa, how you identify the participants in these retreats.
So Richard, that I spoke about, he runs these programs. He is a former military staff person in Poland, and he's also a Rotarian in Poland, and Poland and Ukraine used to be in the same Rotary district. So he has a lot of connections in the Ukrainian military and Rotary groups. So the military and sometimes a Rotary group, or, well, for the children at the retreat, it's the military in Ukraine who send a list to Richard every month saying, here are families who have lost a family member, who have children between 8 and 12. And then he has one of the Ukrainian chaperones, the medical doctor, typically on our team, calls the family and does an intake over the phone and says, would you like to have your child come to the next retreat, and slots them in where there's openings. So we identify the children for the retreats right from the military.
Lisa brings up a great point about the language, and the staff at the retreat, of course, are all Ukrainian, a Ukrainian MD, a Ukrainian child psychologist, and several Ukrainian teachers. They rotate every month. Different set of staff work for us for 3 weeks, then a week off, and then we rotate a new team in. When we travel in Ukraine, of course, we don't speak Ukrainian or Polish. We travel with a translator, a volunteer who's an amazing asset to our team and can keep us safe and communicate quickly as needed in all these languages.
Thank you so much for sharing how, the sauce is made, how you're actually able to identify through your partners who are the folks needing these retreats the most. Of course, there are many people that still need the retreats, which is why it's important to keep the work going, and also how you work with local Ukrainian staff that speak the language, et cetera. So thanks again for shedding light on that. So in our last 5 minutes, I'll first give my takeaways from this conversation, just being how impactful the war continues to be as the news cycle moves on. Ukraine is still facing attacks from Russia, and children are still, not able to live the lives that children should be able to. I think, many of the adults we work with are able to kind of push it down and, say we're safe. That's all, we can ask for. But hearing Sofiia and Taia, how, viscerally it impacts you and your friends and family members just shows the really great need. And also a takeaway was how important the work of psychosocial support and all of the other aid that you're providing in Ukraine continues to be. So just thank you all for taking the time to be on this panel discussion today. And I will hand it over to Susan or Lisa for a final word on Common Man for Ukraine's work. One thing that stuck out to me from our initial conversations was you saying that everyone can bring what they can to Common Man for Ukraine. So with that, I'll hand it over to you to close out this event.
Well, Susan's a good closer, but I'll quickly say that Sofiia and Taia, we met 2 years ago in Poland doing a theater camp for the children at the retreat that month. And we've had the programming at the retreat has the children write a letter to either the President Zelensky or to the world about their experience and what they're feeling. And Patricia Lindbergh, retired professor of theater arts, has turned those letters into a play, a musical production, and Taia and Sofiia and 3 others are coming to America at the end of August. They're coming for the month of August to rehearse that and then perform that as a benefit for Common Man for Ukraine. So I'm giving them a plug if you go to the website, because they're very talented, and to hear a production, an original production based on the children at the retreat and their words and their stories is going to be wonderful. So thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca, for asking how people can support Common Man for Ukraine. We're a nonprofit. We are all volunteers. All the truck drivers that put their lives on the line to deliver this food are volunteers. Lisa, Alex, Steve, and I fund our own travel to help with these retreats and with the convoys. We're going again in August and again in December, and the food convoys will continue every month, and the retreats will continue every month as long as funds are available. And in order to support Common Man for Ukraine, you can go to our website at commonmanforukraine.org and donate what you can, a little bit a month, donor advised funds, appreciated stock, used cars, we'll take it all. Anything that can help these kids. And people contribute in so many different ways. They have fundraisers for us, a ukulele tournament, a cornhole tournament, a tennis tournament, a spaghetti dinner. But if you can't write a check and you can't send us money, the important thing you can do is share the story of the children of Ukraine and of Common Man for Ukraine, to keep this information front and center among your friends, how important it is that these children be cared for. They are the future leaders of Ukraine. They will rebuild a free and independent Ukraine someday, and they need and deserve our support. Thanks to everybody who listened.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And we will come to you. So if anybody on this call or anyone you forward this to wants a presentation to help raise money for this cause, we will come.
Thank you all. Thank you so much again to Lisa, Susan, Sofiia, and Taia for sharing your lived experiences and also the work of Common Man for Ukraine. Thank you to Michael for planning this behind the scenes. And we are ending exactly on time. Thank you. And continue to
Дякую,
support.
Rebecca.
Дякую.
Thank you.